Welcome to the Real View podcast, where Ohio Realtors connect you to innovators and influencers, keeping you with the real view of real estate. Whether you're a broker, agent, first-time homebuyer, industry leader, or just happen to stumble upon our podcast today, you can expect to hear tips, tools, tricks, interesting information, and so much more from the experts in Ohio's real estate game. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Real View podcast. I am your host, Allison Wiley. Joining me today is Dr. Marcia Reynolds. She is a master certified coach and president of Co-Visioning LLC. She is a master of teaching others how to engage in powerful conversations that connect, influence, and activate change even when emotions are strong. From government agencies and large multinational companies to coaching schools in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, and across North America, she's been hired by organizations around the globe, not just because of her highly engaging presentations, but because of her ability to inspire people to change their minds and behaviors. She has provided coaching and training in 47 countries to thousands of coaches and leaders online. She is faculty for coaching schools in the U.S., Asia, and Eastern Europe. Her foundational and mastery breakthrough coaching programs on the coaching.com platform provide an advanced skills and community for coaches around the world. She was recently awarded the Coaching Impact Award for emerging organizations for working with her client, Aeon Vietnam, to transform their culture and accelerate their success with coaching, even through the pandemic, an amazing feat for a retail corporation. As a pioneer in the coaching profession, she was the 5th global president of the International Coaching Federation and is recognized in the ICF Circle of Distinction for her contributions to the worldwide coaching community. She's recognized as Coaches 50 Top Leadership Coach and has been in the top 10 of coaches for global gurus for many years. Prior to coaching, she ran training departments for 2 global companies. She designed the culture change program for a global semiconductor manufacturing company facing bankruptcy. Within 3 years, the company turned around and became the #1 revenue-producing stock market success with its IPO in 1993. Marcia, I'm so happy to welcome you onto the show today. Thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it that you even asked. And let me just share with you, because my name is spelled exactly how you're pronouncing it, but my mother pronounced it as Marcia.
Marcia, I'm so sorry about that.
No, you are right by looking at it and saying, "Oh, I know how to pronounce that." So, yeah. My mother set me up for that all my life.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. Well, I would like to welcome on Dr. Marcia Reynolds here with us to dive into, as I just mentioned in her bio, her experience, her knowledge in the world of coaching, her approach, what she's learned, and what we should be doing right now, knowing the world that we live in, how we can truly be good leaders, be good coaches, and all that good stuff. But before we get started on that, I would like to hear a little bit about you. Would you be so willing to share with us a little bit of you and how you got started in what you do? I know I read your bio, but I'd love to hear, a little bit from you, just how you got started and a little bit about the work that you do now.
From the very beginning, I was one of those people that, okay, I'm going to go to school and learn how to make a difference. Wasn't sure in what way. I thought I was going to do this and then decided to do this. You know how most people, when we're just testing the waters. But I ended up my first job in a training department for a hospital corporation. And the thing was, is I wasn't hired to do training. I was hired to just support them and actually push TV sets around and thread film projectors back in the day. But I ended up having to, because she fired the trainer, to do the management training. And I enjoyed it. You know how so many times we have accidental careers and we find something we really love that we had no idea. The question, did you see yourself doing this when you were a kid? No, of course not. I don't even think it existed. And so it launched me on my whole journey about what does it take for people to really learn and grow? Because just going to an afternoon workshop, it's like, that's nice, and we may have a good time, but it doesn't necessarily change us for good. And dealing with leaders in companies, been teaching leadership now for, I don't even want to say how many years. It's like 45 years or something. Yeah, and they may want to do better, to engage more, to make a difference, truly inspire people to give their best. And then they learn some things how to do that. But as soon as it feels awkward, they just go back to what they were doing before because it's more comfortable. That's the way we work as humans, that my brain would rather be comfortable than to take a risk. And so I don't tend to learn just based on a one-time event of reading a book or going to a workshop. And I kept trying to make my training more memorable. But the sustaining learning was another whole problem. I even got a second master's degree in adult learning to try to make it better. But it was the last day of my last job. I had moved from healthcare into technology and worked there for 11 years, running global training departments and really getting an understanding of people and what they need and who they think they are. And which led me perfectly into this thing called coaching, that somebody sent me an article that last day that ended up being my path for the rest of my career. That was 1995. And it even led me to getting my doctorate to truly understand what goes on in the brain when we coach that's different than when we tell in
Mm.
terms of people learning and growing. And the more I got into coaching, the more I understood why. And I've become very passionate about it because, and it's not just for coaches, but anytime we have a conversation with someone and really want to connect with them and possibly change their mind, you can't just tell people to change their mind. You'll just make them mad, but maybe we can engage them in a way that they can see things differently. So I think coaching is actually a life skill, not just a leadership career skill. So I helped to create the International Coach Federation just because the timing was perfect that I got into it at that time. I've been working developing coaches, for more than 2 decades now, and I continue to pay attention to the latest research in neuroscience and learning and what else do I need to know to do coaching better? So, because I love to learn it and then share it. So it's been an interesting kind of zigzaggy journey, but with the same purpose all along.
I love that. And it's led you to where you are today and such an accomplished career as a coach. And I love that now you're so willing to give back and you want to bring along others with you. And I love
Mhm,
what you said. This is a life tool that everyone should have, whether you're in a leadership
mhm,
position, you're a realtor, which is, the majority of our audience we're talking to today.
mhm, mhm.
It's an important life skill no
Absolutely.
matter what career you're in.
Yeah, and I love that because it came to mind. Definitely and I bought a number of houses. I used to do every 5 years. I want to live somewhere else in my same town. you know, I'm stuck in this one for a while, but I always wanted them to listen to me to hear what I wanted. I remember this one realtor. I was looking at this house. And it was nice. I said, but the closets are too small. And he said, you're going to choose a house based on the closets? And I said, you're no longer my realtor. you know, it's really no matter what that if we want to sell or convince or influence or inspire, that it's a coaching approach of coming in and being curious. I want to know, how you see, what you want and what's the problem, not my assumption, but truly to understand my perspective. And coaching skills can help you get there. And also the whole emotional connection. That's not even words, how important that is. And that's what the book really covers is both the emotional connection, which is so important these days with all the craziness that's going on. And then the skills so people really feel heard and understood before we might share what we know, which is critical for all
And
conversations.
that's such,
Yeah.
I feel like, a switch of thinking, right? Because we
Hmm.
oftentimes, listen to respond and react. And you're saying, no, hey, we need to, before we're even doing that, we need to
Hmm.
really lock in and be in that emotional space with each
Absolutely.
other.
I need to know you're here for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and is that what kind of your
Mhm.
whole idea of coaching the person is all about? Really locking into the individual
Yeah.
person instead of kind of on a
Yeah.
broader scale?
Well, yeah, and the first edition of Coach the Person, which is done extremely well
Mhm.
around the world, but where I focused there was the skills to do that. You know, what it is you say, how do you engage in the conversation, and then I got into the mental state and the emotions. This time I flipped it because so many people are coming to me, so many coaches with, am I going to be replaced by AI?
Yes.
you know, and I needed to address that. I said, if you just do surface problem solving, you will be.
Yeah.
But if you really want to connect with the person and help them to feel comfortable with their choices and to see possibilities beyond where they're stuck, then you first have to engage them at an energetic level.
Mhm.
So the emotions you bring in, your care, your curiosity, your courage, it actually impacts them to feel similar, like, oh, you care, I like to be with you. Oh, maybe I am willing to look at things a different way. We do that with an energetic exchange, not just telling people. So the whole first third of the book is how do you create this energetic exchange, and then bring in your skills of what to say, how to engage them, to see what they see, to use curiosity, to define what they really want, even though they don't really know until they work with you,
I
which I'm
love
sure you see a lot of. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What
Hmm.
do you advise your coaches or in your book? Talk to us a little bit about the steps that we have to take to kind of engage our clients, to make them feel comfortable, to create that
Yeah.
emotional connection. Is there a best practice or way that you recommend us to kind of take that step to build that emotional relationship?
Well, there's the pre-work of before you engage at all, even if you're in a hurry, to take a moment to breathe in at least two emotions you want to feel. I want to feel curious and care. I'm curious what you're seeing right now, what you want, and I truly care about you. I want you to be happy, with the outcome of our time together. That we choose our emotional state, and to remember that the person you're with is smart and resourceful. Never, ever, ever, ever treat people as if they don't know stuff. That whole thing about mansplaining. Well, women splain too,
That's
and it's
true.
like, please ask me first what I know before you start telling me all these things that I already know. And that disengages people immediately,
Yeah.
so going in with, I care, I'm curious, and I see you as a fully capable human being that I want to know what you know already. So we have to set that mindset, embody that, before we go into the conversation, no matter who they are. And if you've struggled with this person before, you have to let that go and say, today is going to be the day. It's going to be great. Because once you get into the conversation, the second part is you must maintain that.
Mm,
And that's where emotional intelligence comes in, to notice anytime you feel tension in your body, breathe, release the tension, and come back to those two emotions that you set yourself up. Be calm and curious. Be calm and curious. Don't judge.
yes.
you know, and there's a whole chapter on how to release judgment, because we all
Mm.
do that. And that's really important, because the moment you judge, they feel it, and that'll break the connection.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Another thing that you talk about in this book is the co-regulation, right? And
Yeah.
keeping, and that's what you meant. We have to maintain this. And is that what you mean by that? We have to kind of keep it
Yeah.
co-regulated, keep our emotions, keeping ahead of our emotional state.
Absolutely, because your emotions impact theirs.
Yeah.
There's a loop, but if you're the one leading the conversation, then your emotions are going to dominate the conversation. So
Mhm.
they may get upset or, resistant, but if you maintain calm and curious and care and no judgment, that they will calm down and they will be with you. Then it's like, okay, well, you're okay to be with. Because I've gotten clients, leadership clients that were told they had to be coached, and it's like, I don't know why I'm here, and it's not me, it's my boss, and that whole thing. And I'm like, and I know I've been here before, and that's okay. And I'm like, that's okay, but they're paying me. So what is it that you could use in our time together that would be useful for you? I have to maintain that state to bring them back. So my emotions will regulate their emotions. They will eventually sink into my emotions. So I have to be very conscious of that. What are the emotions I want them to feel? I must bring those into the conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. That's so important, especially in the world that is so online and we are not, connected, face to face and in person as much as we
Oh,
would want.
right.
It's almost more important now than ever, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, because people are so disconnected,
Yeah.
that when they finally find someone who's listening to them, they're like amazed.
Yeah.
So surprise them, listen to them,
Yeah.
to do that. And honestly, online, the emotions, they sense that too. I mean, people always say, wow, I really feel your passion for your work. Well, that's going to come across. And I have to feel it for it to be genuine when I speak. So you've got to, even online, you've got to really set your emotional tone before you go into the conversation.
Yeah, that's so true. Whether you're in a coaching place or not, I think in any conversation you're having,
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm.
professional life, personal life, to
Mm-hmm.
yourself, making sure you are heading into that the best version of
Yeah.
yourself is going to help those
Mm-hmm.
conversations go so much better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely.
Right. If you just read that part of it, which, I understand the statistics of how many people just read the first few chapters and that's the end of it, you know, then you're still going to get great value. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And you've worked, as I mentioned, with so many companies and you've trained, CEOs, leaders, just the whole gamut of people,
Mhm.
in leadership positions. What's the biggest value that you've seen? I mean, just from the sheer what we talked about earlier, production
Mhm.
numbers and increasing
Mhm.
in sales and revenue and all that good stuff. But what's the biggest benefits that you've seen when you've had these leaders that are implementing this kind of style in their work,
Mhm.
in their offices, with their
Mhm.
employees, with their agents? What have you seen? How has that transformation really been shown from your perspective?
Well, I've worked with companies to actually integrate an entire coaching culture, and I actually, you read it, won an impact award. This company was a retail company in Vietnam, and they owned stores and malls. And I met with them mm, about a year before the pandemic and fleshed out a plan with them of how they were going to start with one division, measure the results in terms of productivity and brand image and engagement, and then expand it out to the larger company. But they really wanted to change the whole mindset of leaders must tell people what to do to leaders engage other people to think.
Mm,
So we hit the pandemic, and I was figuring, okay, we had the plan, they started it out, but we hit the pandemic, and their retail company, maybe after, we'll pick it back up. It was right at the end of the pandemic, they reached out to me and said, okay, we're ready to apply for that award. They not only survived the pandemic, they thrived. They
mhm,
even opened new stores and their sales were so far up, their productivity, they won an award for being the best place to work in Vietnam, and they kept and they went out and they were helping other companies to use coaching. So I mean, they had a whole list of measurements. So yes, you will have more revenue and productivity. People like working there.
yeah.
They even had these fairs where they would teach the families in the community what coaching was. And so the employees were really proud, of knowing what coaching is, of being coached, as well as providing coaching. And as you said, they could take it home and coach at home. Parents can use coaching skills,
Yep.
especially if you have teenagers. So, and now the International Coaching Federation if you go on their website and type in impact awards, I mean, there's years now of case studies of small and large organizations that have integrated coaching and the amazing results that in every measurement that they get, because it's not just a tool that they're using, it's a way of being.
Yep.
And when you change a way of being with people, they react differently. And when people feel heard, seen, and valued, then they give back. And as you said, we need it more than ever right now, not just because of everything's online and we're not physically connecting, but because the world is upside down.
Yes.
And there's so much uncertainty and fear about what's going to happen. And not that we ever knew what was going to happen. But we pretended that we knew, and the brain thought it would be okay. It'll be okay. Now we don't know,
Yep.
and so we need to be with people in this way. This is a gift
Yeah.
that we give the world
True.
I see you, I hear you, I understand you. And I think you're an important person. If
Yes.
we just did that for each other in any venue, what a difference we would make.
That's so true. That almost is, coaching 101, but just the basics of connecting as human
Yeah,
beings. And I think that's
yeah.
what you're kind of taking this back to, is just the basics of being a human being, the basics of connecting with each other and forming those relationships and having those conversations where, like you said, we're hearing each other, we're seeing each other, saying, I get you, like, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, exactly.
Those phrases
Yeah,
are so powerful, and in a
yeah.
world where, like you mentioned, it does seem so combative. It does seem like we're
Yeah.
so far apart on so many things, and just being able to come together in that place is, just such a positive feeling. And
Yeah.
outside of work, inside of work, no matter where you are, I think that's a great way to approach and have those
Yeah.
conversations with people.
Absolutely. It's so important. And then if you look at the skills, so what one of the things you just said was about, that I get you, I understand you, but it's not enough to just say that. You have to so the concept of reflective inquiry, what's so powerful is how I can concisely summarize what you told me. So you do know I heard you, instead of just saying, okay, I get it, I understand, I've been there. That's not good enough.
Yeah.
To really understand, how do I reflect back to you the important things you say, and to ask you questions like, what do you mean by that? What's making this so important to you? That they feel like you are listening to me and you do care to know more. In that process, I'm also helping you think, where you're going to realize, oh, I haven't really thought this through. Maybe there's some other things. So I'm clarifying for you as well as for myself. And those are the skills that the book teaches, how to really do that. So people really get that you get them. Yeah, for
I love
reals.
that. I love that. No, it's absolutely so true. It's so important. I would love to hear, Marcia, how we can get a hold of this book, how we can, where we can find it, where we can, find more about you. Tell us, where we can find all of this if we're looking for more information on it.
Well, of course, the books are available on all the online bookstores. It did hit number one on Amazon the second day. It held it for one day.
Amazing.
And so
Congratulations.
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere that you might buy that. They've even bought some for some of the airport bookstores.
Love
I
that.
can't wait to find it there.
Yeah.
But my website is covisioning.com, one word, covisioning, or outsmartyourbrain.com, either
Love
way. And the books, you look on the index, there's the books, and it shows almost all my books, and almost all, definitely, except for the one I hide in my garage. Yeah. And there's resources. When you look at the resources, you can click on that and see different videos where I talk about the skills, and articles, and podcasts. I'll put your podcast there.
Yay!
Yay. And there's just so many other things on the website, the blogs, that would be useful. Just free information that
Yeah,
I'm
I love
happy to
that.
share. And in fact, if you go to the book page for Coach the Person, Not the Problem on my website, and you scroll down, I mean, there's you can download the first chapter. there's some, the articles and things like that, but there's a button that says claim your bonus. So if you buy the book, you can go and you can sign up and get a free, pretty intense workbook that highlights the major things in all the chapters. So you can use it as a workbook and refer to that. So you have like the highlights instead of having to go back through the book. Where did she say that? So go there and get your bonus.
Yeah, that's great. And that was going to be my next question. Where do we start if we want to, really start practicing all of this? If we want to arm ourselves with all of this information and begin implementing it? And I think that's a great place. What you just recommended, checking that out and learning more and teaching it to yourself. And sounds like that's a great way to start.
Well, and in the book, there are tools and case studies, tip sheets, but there's also exercises. So go do the exercises with your friends. That's a lot of, sometimes book clubs use my book and I'll come on and they're all doing the exercises together. So there's a lot of ways to implement this. It's a teaching book. It's not just a conceptual book.
And ways to use it in all ways, all aspects of your life, in your professional and personal, with children, as you said, teenagers. It goes beyond, that corporate world, and you can really implement it and practice it across all areas of your life.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, Marcia, I want to thank you again so much for joining me. Thanks for all the great work you do around this, for being so dedicated, and for your willingness to give back and to teach others this.
Absolutely.
It is such a valuable skill. I know we could all flex this muscle. Great to use, as I mentioned, no matter where you're at in your life. So I want to thank you again so much for your time and joining me today, and for all your knowledge you shared with us.
I'm so glad you invited me. Thank you.
And to all of our listeners out there, be sure to go check out Marcia's book, Coaching the Person, Not the Problem. It is out now, as she mentioned, and everywhere that you want or that you find your book. So be sure to check that out. Check out the website. So much good stuff out there, and start your coaching journey today. We could all use a little bit of that in our relationships. So thank you guys for listening. Marcia, thank you again. And we will be back with you guys next week. Talk to you then.
Thank you for listening to The Real View. That wraps up today's episode. You can keep up with the latest on the podcast at ohiorealtors.org/therealview and on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Have questions, comments, or suggestions? We want to hear from you. Email us at podcast@ohiorealtors.org. We'll see you next time.
This episode of The Real View is sponsored by the Ohio Housing Finance Agency. The Ohio Housing Finance Agency offers affordable mortgage rates, down payment assistance, and homebuyer education to prepare homebuyers for long-term success. To unlock these resources for your client, make sure they're working with an Ohio Housing Finance Agency approved lender. There's more than 140 lenders throughout Ohio. Learn about the Ohio Housing Finance Agency's programs and view the list of approved lenders at ohiohome.org. Homeownership is part of your client's future.